All right, so this is a different kind of video. This is not technically something we went over in class, although if you were in class on this particular day, you would know a little bit about what happened. So we started up class, and I said, okay, we're in week 7, and we've got a couple of different files here, and I intended to have us start with a simpler room for testing the lights before moving on to the living room with all of its vast array of materials and objects. And I opened up the file, and boy howdy was it broken. It looked like this. And I can tell you right away that this is what happens when materials are lost, when there are no materials, right? If I go into wireframe mode, it looks like it's supposed to, but as soon as you try to turn on a shader, it's just like bleep blurb can't, and it gives you this nonsense. So I thought for sure this was a blackboard issue. I thought for sure, or I had saved it the wrong time because my hypershade was a mess. So I had gone in there and I had deleted everything at one point that wasn't Lambert 1 and these two other defaulty things. So I got rid of all this stuff. Then I get home and it's still broken. This is my file from home. And then I go to assign everything Lambert 1, which is something we all tried in class, at least to get the scene working. And this was happening. So not only is there no materials assigned to anything, there's no anything there. The Lambert is gone. So it's at this point I realize I'm dealing with a different sort of problem than just lost materials. And so I go into the file and I start looking around, and what do I find? There's literally nothing attached. Now I can try and attach the Lambert one. There's nothing attached. So I go in here and I right click and I assign a new material. And I say Lambert, just a Lambert, and okay, so that works. So we can assign materials, right? So this is how we troubleshoot. We try to see which things are broken and how to fix it. And then, because I'm stubborn, I was going to insist on using this file for the tutorial when I make that video because I hate that it broke in class and I'm like that. But as I'm making stuff, I'm like, oh, I need to go to my layers because I need to turn off the other stuff to fix the wall. And I go here and there are no layers, which explains why there's no there's like stuff missing. There's things missing from this file. I eventually deleted the camera. I don't think I had yet. There should be a bicycle here somewhere. There should be, I think there was still lights in here. Like there's things missing. So now I'm realizing this is even more of a different issue. I go to my outliner. I've got all these weird groups. They don't have anything in them. This doesn't have anything in it. This does. This kind of does. There's no group for the table. There's no group like there's just completely borked. So what do we do? Well, one thing I did is I went to Google and I said all materials and layers lost from Maya. I had to try a couple different search word things, like you search, I think I searched materials and layers stripped from Maya, but that got me people asking about how to actually take those things out. And mentioning materials and layers gets you different results than just talking about materials. And I tried a couple different things, and then I came across this at Polycount, which is a site I've never heard of. Everything is green, missing objects. And this was the second or third thing that I was reading through, and they're mentioning, what the green shader is explaining it to person, and and they mentioned that they were missing objects, and it was because they're on layers. And so eventually I get to someone saying, oh, I've seen this before. And he explains that you should just go into the MA file and fix a couple things. So this is another reason to save things as an MA file. MA files are script, they're text. You cannot do what I'm about to do with an MB file. So the first thing I did, besides closing things because we don't need them to be open, is I actually made a copy of the file. So you never go into the text of your Maya file while it's the only one you have because you could completely screw this thing up. One errant period somewhere in your whole file doesn't work. So I actually made a folder because who needs to be looking through all of this? Technically what I did was, you see this, rooms 2, rooms, lights, copy, lights fix, lights, no, we don't need that. So for this test, I've got it in its own folder. It's by itself. And I have a few different text editing programs in here, from HTML and stuff like that. And so you right click, open with. In this case, I'm going to use WordPad because what we have to do is very, very simple. we have to do a find and replace. And again, this is not a thing I have ever known about before, and you may not ever encounter this very specific error, but there's a lot of random types of errors that can come up in 3D. And since I'm using a copy of the file, if it turns out that this is not a real thing, well, then I don't have to worry about it. But as this person explains here, you open it up in Notepad. I also have this, by the way, it's a nice program. And you search for this negative nan parentheses ind and replace it with 0.0. He says he's known about this for a while. Nan is short for not a number. So Maya is trying to write a number that's out of range of whatever it is that is supposed to be there. And because it can't write the right number and it writes this nonsense, it doesn't load the rest of the file. That's why layers and materials are missing. So it loads this like in order. So it's able to load some of the things, which by the way, this is, if I was in a different program, it'd tell me this is like 11 billion pages long. This is what your Maya file is. And so he's just explaining that like Maya, this is a particular instance where once it can't load one thing, everything goes bananas. So it's a copy of my file. What the heck? I'm going to try it. So I grab what's between these quotation marks and I say Control C for copy, and I go into my text program, and I'm careful not to type anything into this directly, but I am going to go, there's always a find and replace. So you go to replace and it should bring up this, and I can Control V, copy in exactly what the person is saying to look for. And I go back here, what does he want me to replace it with? Oh, 0.0. So I type in 0.0. Again, this is a very common thing with large text things like this, where you take one thing and replace it with another. Now in this case, not a number is a form of an error. So we kind of don't want any of them in there. There's plenty of other things that you don't want to be replacing. For example, where it says 10.0 over here, that's a number that can exist anywhere for any reason. I wouldn't want to replace that. All right, so, but because this is an error, I feel comfortable replacing it, and also it's a copy of my file, so what do I care? And we're going to say replace all, and it's just going to find all of them, and it takes a minute because there's a lot. And it says WordPad has finished searching the document. I say okay, and then I'm going to close this. And while we have this open, I'm just going to show you real quick. You can see the very first information in here about this file, and it's telling you what version of the product, what service pack, the license. This is why it gives you that student error, by the way, oh, this is a student version. And so if you're working between like different people with different softwares, you can check this to see why things are not communicating. I'm on version 2019, service pack 1, build 7601. You may have, or that's for my Windows anyways, like you may have different versions, and you can kind of figure out what's going on with these. So I minimize that, and oh wait, none of this is going to work if I don't save this. So hit Control S to save. It shifts a little to another page, I don't know why, and minimize that, and now I'm going to open it again. And I already did this once for myself, but hopefully it'll work this time. And wouldn't you know it, it fixed everything. So it didn't technically lose any layers or any objects or any materials. If I go to my rendering editor, Hypershade, voila, there they all are. It didn't actually, no, by the way, these are not labeled. Please label your materials, be better than me. As far as I can tell, I did not lose anything. The file was corrupted, and so it looked like I lost stuff. So that's cool. Oh no, that is correct. I'm looking at the ceiling to see what color it is. And I see, oh, yep, there's the bike layer, and there's a layer for lights, even though there's none on there. So, okay, file is intact. That, though, is step 1. Step 2 is to figure out what in the heck just happened in the first place. And one thing I noticed, and I kind of ignored it while I was noticing it, is this file kept thinking that it was in a project that I'm not using for this file. So what I mean is that I'm storing all of this stuff, all my stuff for classes, just in a regular folder called 3D Materials. at one point I had set up a different project, UV Workshop. We used that in class earlier. And so it kept, for this file, thinking I was in there. I am not. And I just kind of ignored it and would like manually go over here, but that's maybe one of the things that went screwy. So what I decided was, okay, I'm going to tell everything to, I'm going to set the project to 3D, where'd it go? 3D materials. Materials spelled wrong. So I hit set. And one thing that happened, it didn't happen here, but it did happen earlier when I was in a different file, and it got kind of mad at me that I didn't have a script folder. So another thing I might do, is it script or scripts? I'm going to check. Is make the folder that it was telling me to look for. There was a yellow error down here when I opened up one of the files, and it is scripts. So the fact that I don't have some of these files may also be what was throwing it. If I was rendering, it really needs a cache folder, stuff like that. So that's another thing that could have been going wrong, is that it simply was looking for things that didn't exist. So now I can say file save scene as. Aha, there it is. Warning, auto-dismiss scripts, other mail line. It's looking for it. Oh, a scenes file. So it's looking for a scenes folder, which I don't have. So you know what? I'm gonna make one. I'm gonna put in there, just so it's not cranky, right? If I'm getting this little yellow error message, it's not terrible, but it's not great if you broke your file. Another thing I'm going to do, because this file has been around for a while. Some of these objects are coming from like hella long time ago. And yeah, you can see a few like remnants of history. So because I'm no longer going to be futzing with the models themselves, I'm just applying materials and using lights, I'm going to go to edit, delete all by type. We'd use delete by type history to delete history on a specific object. I'm going to delete all the history from this file. Now that is a one-way street, but I'm doing it because I know for the fact I don't really need to work with any of the modeling history on these. I can still add edge loops, I can still cut in things, but I don't want to lose materials again. I don't want stuff to break the next time I'm using this. All right, so I'm going to say that, and I'm going to hit save, and it's going to give me an error message again. And hopefully now it should work. It should work a little bit better. And the other history is, you can tell from the names of these things, is that the way they were imported. And so when you import stuff, it's got a lot of weird namespaces, and things can get convoluted. And a lot of these objects were from different versions of Maya because they have been made over the years. I made this dresser at a different time than I made the table, at a different time than I made the walls and the whatever else. So that could also be contributing to it. So what I'm doing is I'm minimizing the chances of that happening again. Now, for various reasons, I would still keep the broken file, because that would allow me to go back to those models in case I need to. I am also a hoarder, so I have I'm a digital hoarder. There's so much crap in here I don't need. As you can see, in trying to fix this, I had this many versions. So take that for what it's worth when I say, oh, I always keep the old version. If you name things properly, this is not properly. Whatever I was calling this, copy, lights, lights fix, lights take two, those all mean the same thing. Name them properly, organize them properly, keep track of things, and when you have errors like this, work to minimize their chances of recurring. But also realize that Google is a great resource. I would have never in a million years gone through all of my code and read it, and even if I had, I don't know what this means. Now I know what it means, but in all my years of doing this, I have not experienced that particular issue. So use the Google, learn how to reframe your questions to get closer to what you want. So my first attempt at answering this, materials disappear. Oh, I also spelled everything wrong. But it's that didn't quite get me what I wanted, so I reframed the question, and then I did get what I wanted, and that was fantastic. So, um, use Google to your advantage. There's nothing wrong. It's not cheating. It's not taking the easy way out. Everyone else has had problems. They've asked the questions online already. Any problem you have had has been asked online at Reddit or some other forum. So just find find the wording that gets you things that are close to where you want, and then you might see different wording that tells you, oh, maybe I should be asking this question. Use that to your advantage. And above all else, when you are messing with these files, when you are messing with the actual like text of the file, make a copy, throw it somewhere else, mess with that one all you want. If I broke this all to high holy heaven, I could still go back to my broken one where at least the models work, and then I could apply new textures. And would I be annoyed at applying new textures? Yes, but I wouldn't have to remodel the whole room. All right, so that was my epic adventure in troubleshooting. I hope you all learned something from it. And yeah, this is why we do this. This is the primary reason why we save stuff in MA files.